Hello, friends, and welcome to r/ProRevenge. And today we have for you a fresh set of stories about getting back at someone with pro-revenge after being wronged. But before we start, if you're new here, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you don't miss a new video every single day. And our first story. Fire me because I was sick? Have fun making minimum wage? This took place a couple years back, and one of my old coworkers said I should post it here. So this happened during the beginning of my senior year in high school. I was balancing football, school, and work. I worked at a convenience store chain that's only around my region of the country. I had an incompetent store manager. She was lazy, never wanted to do work. All the store associates, including assistant managers, were always stuck cleaning up her mess. She took 2-hour lunches and always thought it was appropriate to leave her shift early. For some reason, and I'll never understand why, she did not like me for whatever reason. A good example was her writing me up for using my cell phone on the floor when it was my mother calling me asking when to pick me up. I didn't have my license when this was going on, or the time she gave me crap for not fully stocking the fridge. Now, she came in early in the morning, and I would usually come in at the end of her shift because I had school and football practice. Then there was a night shift after me. She would come in the morning and see the fridge not fully stocked. This is an example of how much of an idiot she really was and how she should be giving the night shift guys write-ups for that, but no, I was her main target. Now, I'd gotten very sick one weekend and had called in to work so that I couldn't come in that day. None of the managers or assistant managers were in, so the team lead took my message. Looking back at it, I should have blamed him more than my idiot manager. I assume he never told the managers I was out because come the next week I had a football game on Saturday, and I usually worked Saturdays, and when I'd gotten that job earlier in the year, I gave her my football schedule so she wouldn't put me on for that day. My boss called me Friday night telling me I needed to come to work Saturday because I missed the previous week, and no call, no show is automatic termination. I told her I did call in, but she didn't believe me. So instead of her telling me I was fired, I said, I quit right there. On the phone. So I guess she didn't fire me, but I fired me. I don't know. Anyway, now to the revenge. I already had plans to get her fired or demoted. Either one would have made me happy. Over the course of the month prior to my departure, I'd taken video and pictures of how bad she had that store running. By the time I'd gotten to my shift, I'd taken pictures of filthy floors and bathrooms, flies all around the food assembly area, associates on their phones, even the manager herself playing games or whatever right on the floor. Basically showing how she kept her store a wreck during her shift, and I was left to clean up the rest. I ended up sending all of this all the way up to our regional manager. She was sleeping with our district manager. If I sent it to him, it would have gotten buried. And I got a response back that the situation would be handled accordingly. District manager ended up getting fired due to incompetence, and he was also under fire initially for sexual assault allegations from other store workers, and my store manager was demoted all the way down to a basic store associate. The icing on the cake, a year later after I quit or got fired, I was working at a warehouse and making about $20 an hour. There was another one of the convenience stores right down the road from my building. I ended up going there for lunch only to see my old boss getting reamed out by that store's manager. So, with the knowledge that I was making almost 3 times her hourly wage, store associates only made $8.35, and she was still incompetent at her job, it made me quite happy. And our next story. Treat me like crap for almost 2 years for minimum wage? I reached my breaking point, causing my former boss, who was also area manager, to lose his job. So I worked for a Dunkin' Donuts in my hometown, started in February 2016, and worked till around midsummer last year. My boss/area manager, we'll call Big B, or B for short, was an unprofessional and horrible boss. I was still in high school at the time, and he only gave me weekends for months on end, occasionally giving me a weekday just to clean the store like a monkey. Big B was an a-hole to say the least. He'd treat us workers like we were dogs, and he'd be noticeably annoyed when a customer would take a long time to order, or when we'd F up an order, he would two-face us. Tell the customer that he's sorry that we screwed up, then when the customer would leave, he'd make snarky remarks about her to us like we were in on berating her. Stupid old lady, didn't know what she wanted, man. When it got busy, we were supposed to work as a team, but when it got busy, he'd yell at us and tell us to hurry up, which would actually put us all in a bad mood and we would actually work slower. When it came to making pack-out, which was unsanitary, made donuts and baked goods like that too, no gloves, he would get complaints, but his boss, who owned the store, wouldn't do anything about it, so he'd get away with unsanitary workmanship. This doesn't matter now because he'd just make me do it almost every day in the summer. So when summer came around, I got more hours, which was nice, but stressful beyond belief. After summer ended, he offered me the opening coordinator position because he had no one else and I needed more hours and money, so I took the offer. I had to wake up at 2 a.m. every morning to go to the store and bake all the goods and make extra donuts before the store would open at 4 a.m., and I needed the money, so I didn't complain. But it got too stressful when he would constantly berate me because he'd come in at 4 a.m. to help me out with customers, but he'd make me help customers, then he'd yell at me for not finishing on time. I got $8.75 an hour to come in and bake. My two good friends, both named David, needed a job, so I hooked them up to work at Dunkin' because I thought I would have extra help for morning baking. But of course, they get put on customer service, and seeing how B would treat them disgusted me. He treated them like they were brainless monkeys, and I started to question why I was doing this to myself. I got a second job at a hotel as a bellman, and I was treated so much better. The two Davids got jobs there too, and we all pulled two jobs for a while. Then mid-summer 2017, after a year of baking and getting up 6 days a week at 2 a.m. just to now start leaving at 6 a.m. to go to the hotel, I decided that I was working for the wrong man, and I up and left the store at 5:30 a.m. before B comes in. I told my coworkers that I loved working with them, but I just can't do it. I left, rode home on my bike, and called both Davids. Told them both not to come in and that I was sorry that they had to go through his insults on how they were so slow. Later that week, one of my other coworkers gets fired by him because she finally snapped on him. Then another coworker just left because I sent her a big long paragraph on why she should quit. She heeded my word and left. I've been gone from Dunkin' since last summer. Today I had orientation for a new job, and I offered to give a sweet old lady a ride home because she lived in the same town and we'd be working at the same store together. Turns out her daughter works at a Dunkin', and I heard Big B got fired because of the mass loss of workers. It was the best thing I've heard in a long time. He treated me and my coworkers like crap. Unsanitary piece of crap is gone. Let's move on to our next story. Claim harassment against me, get fired. At one point, I was managing a small team of business development reps at a small software company. These are the recent grads that would be phone monkeys, making cold calls, trying to set up appointments for the real salespeople. I had two reps at the time, Amy and Paul. They were young but hungry. They listened to training and were generally great employees. At one point, Paul and I realized that we had some mutual friends, and that helped our relationship. Fast forward a few months from their hiring, and my boss grabs me one morning for a meeting with HR. Apparently, Amy had filed a harassment complaint against me, alleging some crazy things. She reported that my single goal was to ruin her career and that I would make sure she was fired. The HR meeting was a formality as no one believed it, but they had to do the investigation. Nothing came from it, but I would never be alone in a room with Amy again. If she came to talk to me with no one around, I would go to a common area of the office or invite someone into the discussion. A few more months and Paul asked me to be a reference. The company was a mess and the CEO was running it into the ground. I was more than happy to do it as I was job hunting myself. I just asked he keep me in the loop about interviews and offers, and I would cover his time out of the office. Not surprisingly, he landed a job pretty quick and gave his notice to me. Also at this time, IT was doing hardware upgrades to laptops, adding more RAM, allowing us to run the latest version of our product for demos. I coordinated with IT to have both their machines done one day and told them to take a long lunch. Well, a little over a year before this happened, one VP had been fired. After he left, I learned it was common practice for IT to review all the Skype chat logs from the machine. Luckily, it meant me getting a small bonus because the VP was trashing the company to me, but I wasn't. And I was vaguely praising the CEO. I'm no dummy. I don't have those conversations over channels that can be reviewed. With Paul out the door and Amy being a lying C-word, I asked IT to review their Skype logs during the upgrade because something seemed fishy. I was right. Even though Amy deleted her chat logs, Paul didn't. There were chats in there about how they were both job searching, and Amy had gotten an admin password for our CRM. She'd been pulling customer lists to take with her. Furthermore, she'd been bragging about receiving a $1,500 bonus to drop the harassment complaint against me, as the CEO was worried that any complaints or lawsuits would scare away investors needed to keep the company going. Oh, and she chatted that they made me sign a non-disclosure about it, but they won't find out. Oh, she was toast. Director of IT and I went straight to HR and the CEO with the printouts. The decision was quick. Both were to be terminated immediately. Amy for unauthorized access of data and breach of her non-disclosure, and Paul for some bullcrap reason of not reporting her. They got back from their lunch, and I immediately called them into HR. Paul was given 2-week severance, but Amy needed to pay back her $1,500 hush bonus because of her gross misconduct. She wasn't eligible for severance or unemployment, and the repayment was deducted from her final check and quarterly bonus. Her exit check was less than $10. Paul had 2 weeks off with severance. We remain connected, but I love seeing Amy changing jobs on LinkedIn every 6 to 9 months. Hey guys, thank you all for watching the video to the end, and I'll see you in the next one.